continue. I am talking. Do you see the record symbol at all? Okay.
Yep, it's
Okay.
there. It's
I'm
working.
talking to Cate Field. She lives in Dorchester
I
or
live in Dorset.
Dorset. Okay. Dorset, London.
No,
England.
England.
Dorset, London. Dorset, England. I'll
Dorset
get this. I'll start warming up and get really good at interviewing. But Kate has an alternative school on YouTube where she teaches people of all ages, including me, because a lot of the lessons I things I've never done. And I find it really interesting. Like I have never done optical illusions. I've never, and she makes it all seem so easy and fun. She teaches the Doodle Club. That's something else I've never done. I actually have never kept an art journal, or this is all new to me, but I love studying people who make them and junk journals and all that. So, Kate, talk about your alternative school. She's a dancer too.
Oh, thank you so much, Anna. It's just lovely. It's lovely to be here. Yeah, so I started the Alternative Arts School on YouTube just over a year ago. So in March 2024, I really started it. So not that long ago, really. And yeah, it's just been a really interesting experience.
What made you start something on YouTube? Because you teach adults and children, ranging from children to adults.
I do. So I was a school teacher for a long time. I was head of art and design, and I was a vice principal in a college. So I did formal education. I trained as a teacher, teaching art and design, and teaching history, and teaching dance, which is my other absolute love. And then a couple of years ago, I became quite ill and I had to resign. Well, I left full time school teaching and I started working more with students with special educational needs, especially kids with autism. And then I started to do some adult workshops and things near to where I live. And I remember it very clearly because I'm running an art group in Axminster, which is in Devon, near to where I live. And one of the women who come to my class was going away to the States. Her son lives in New York City, and she was going to go and stay with him for a month. And she said, Kate, I'm not going to have your classes for a week. Can you just record them and put them onto YouTube so I can watch them? So that's how it started. I started to kind of think about perhaps I could do this and maybe a few people might enjoy that, especially people who maybe had never had the opportunity to go to art school and who are thinking, actually, I'd like to try something new and do that. So that's how it started.
And you've been very successful at it. I guess your channel keeps growing.
It does, which has been a little overwhelming, actually. And I was pleasantly surprised. It was very sweet when I started. My daughter, who's 30, she said, "Oh, Mom, you're going to be exposed. You're going to have people saying really mean things and nasty comments and all of this kind of stuff." And I laughed a little. I did laugh, bless her heart, because I was a school teacher for
So
nearly
you're
30.
used to nasty comments and input
There
from
is nothing,
everyone.
and there is nothing that anyone can say to me that I haven't heard before. But it just wasn't true. If you look at the comments on every video that I do, they are overwhelmingly wonderful. They're just really sweet comments, really lovely, supportive comments. Sometimes there are heart-wrenching comments. And over the months, people have opened up a little bit because I have a Facebook group as well that's linked to the YouTube group, and so we can kind of exchange more. It's more of a community, and that has grown as well. And it's just been for me a very very positive experience. It's been great.
Well, can we talk about you do different things? You have kind of a meditative, um, thought-provoking, what should I call it? Meditation, really.
Well, it's mindful. I think
Mindful meditation, which
it's
is the
a
kind of
mind.
meditation.
It is, and I think that over over the years that I've been teaching both adults and children and young adults, I've found that working with our hands, doing art and crafts, can have a really positive impact when we are feeling stressed and when we're feeling distressed and when we're trying to work through things. And I'm not a therapist, but I am very, very used to working with groups of people who are going through some kind of trauma. I've done a lot of work with very, very vulnerable people. And so, in my own art practice and in my own teaching practice, I know the power of something like mindful art journaling, of writing, of doodling, of picking up a paintbrush, or knitting or sewing or doing some embroidery, just working with your hands just is a very, very powerful way to make you feel better.
Now talk about, okay, so let's talk about the other two aspects of this. One is the Doodle Club, which
Yeah.
I absolutely adore because I've never, when I create, I go right into it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I just go into it. And I've started this art journaling by watching during COVID.
Ah,
I
yeah.
found myself at home and I don't have a television set. So I started watching Netflix and things and found YouTube. And then I found all these junk journalers, and they turned out to be women, which I'm very interested in, the creativity of women, and how they use it. I also found them talking to their children. And I remembered this as my home experience, not my art school experience, but my home experience, where I would be drawing on the kitchen table and my son would want something or need something, and then incorporating him. I mean, nobody saw it, but I experienced it. So I experienced this thing on YouTube and I thought I had been writing on Judy Chicago and had been working on women's art, women's house. I had read about it and I was Miriam Shapiro. And so to me, this was like a found woman's club that, for the most part, there are men who do things also. I'm not discounting that. But for the most part, women with children that had been through some kind of trauma or had been sick or had to take a break from whatever it was they were doing or wanted to take a break. So I've never doodled, and the other thing that I was interested in, I'm sorry to go on like this, but the other thing that I was interested in was I'm not an abstract, I'm very representational in everything I do. So for me, finding your channel was really helpful because, of course, I went to traditional art school. So, and breaking the representational and doing something in the abstract was, and watching somebody else teach me how to do that, uh, I mean, I just found that extremely helpful. So, having said all that, if you will address the Doodle Club and then how you make from how you do the art journaling with just a plain doodle. You start doodling and then you go off into it. Or the other thing where you have like pieces of paper and you start making abstract art. And like I said in my questions to you, there you can do that in a small way and then go to bigger pieces if you so wish. So go ahead. I'm sorry. I just wanted to
No,
give you.
no, it's fascinating listening to you. I am very much of the idea that anyone can create art. And one of the things that I think create a barrier for people to create, and I hear it all the time with my adults, is I can't draw. I hear that all the time. And that puts up the barrier. So my philosophy and my teaching philosophy is pick up the pen and make a mark. And from that mark, we can then start to build something. And that mark could be made with a pencil, a piece of charcoal, or a pen, anything, a paint, some paint on a brush. Make the mark. That is your starting point. And so on Mondays, I have Doodle Club. And this is very much this. It's about picking up the pen and just doing some squiggles and then moving that into something else, perhaps playing with some color, perhaps creating some patterns, and allowing yourself the freedom of just creating like we did when we were children. And no one was telling us whether this was a good thing or a bad thing or all of that. It's that element of creative playfulness that I think is really, really important to get us going. And that's really the essence of Doodle Club. And that may well just start to develop into something else. So I don't know whether that makes any sense.
Oh, it absolutely does. And what about the shapes? Like using
No,
shapes. Okay, the second thing. Uh,
absolutely. So yes, sorry.
no, go ahead.
I really love abstract art anyway, because I think that art can be very, very expressive of feelings and emotion. And so we can then move into color, into shape, into pattern to express how we feel. And again, we move away from the representation, away from, oh, I can't draw, to let's just play with some shapes and some patterns and some lines and see what happens. And I like using a sketchbook and I like creating small pieces just to kind of get people going. And it's how I teach composition anyway, is through abstract and through collage. So I will use both of those. But I think a lot of people get they feel that they can't do something when they can. They absolutely can. And it's about kind of starting you off. And this is the feedback I get from both the workshops that I do with real life and my YouTube tutorials. The feedback I get is I'm kind of like giving you permission to try something new and to play.
Well, it's very difficult for me. So I like trying things. And then in some ways that make sense to me, which then your teaching does. But there's something else there, the third aspect to it, and this is optical illusion, which is something else that I've never tried, never done, never your Faber-Castell making
I
of
love those pencils.
optical. I know, and you said that you love the way those pencils blend,
Mm.
and then watching you make optical illusions, I think is something that most people would not even think of. Like they would think, I can never do this. I cannot create an optical illusion. And yet with a few squiggles, you start with just a simple shape and then go ahead.
Absolutely. And I started doing optical illusions when I was teaching at school. And one of the things that I really love about school teaching is mixing up the subjects. So my main subject was art and design, but I also worked with the maths teachers and the science teachers and the music teachers. And I used to love cross curricular, as we call it in England. And the maths teacher was talking about tessellations and about various other kind of um, patterns that occur in mathematics. And we then started talking about optical illusions and what happens when our eyes look at something that's two-dimensional and it there's something there that's intriguing. How does that work? And what do we do? So we looked at the whole mathematical side of it, and I explored this for years. And there's just a few um, optical patterns that I just love, and they're not difficult. They're really not. But I used to love doing this when I was a kid. So it's just building on from those, just sort of joining dots together and creating these fascinating pieces.
That's wonderful. Okay, so those three are the things, three, the doodling, and the optical illusion or tessellation. What is
Oh,
that?
so tessellation is a pattern where you have one bit fits into another perfectly. So the most famous artist was Escher, who
Oh, yeah, yeah,
created.
yeah.
But if you think of a jigsaw puzzle, all of the pieces in a jigsaw puzzle fit together with no gaps, and that is a tessellation. And you can have a very simple tessellation, which would just be squares together. And then you can have more complicated ones. So if you think about a mosaic tiled floor, everything fits together with no gaps. That's called it. That is a tessellation. And in abstract art, we can create some really exciting ones. And I did, a few tutorials on how to create your own tessellation, and it's a very exciting thing to do. And it also teaches a little bit of maths, which
And
is good.
and then the interesting thing to me, the other interesting thing that I learned from was you will take a book. Actually, I watched somebody else do it. Somebody called Dina from, I think, I don't want to get, because I'm concentrating on something else. I don't want to get the name wrong, but she has something called the Enchanted Journal. She took a magazine one day and ripped it up and made like a journal out of it. I found that really interesting. So I saw you do a similar kind of thing where you took a journal and really the pages were all different sizes. You cut windows in them, which also opened them up in a different way. Then you married that to your doodling, which went from one page to the next page. And I was just like, oh, that's interesting. So that's, it was just, can you talk about that kind of making of an art journal and the freedom it gives you to create something that that it's not precious, you're not making a Matisse. You're actually taking a simple idea and you're ripping things up and you're anyway, talk about that.
Well, you hit on it exactly there, Anna, because I think that we can get very limited and are scared almost when we've got a brand new sketchbook or a brand new writing journal, something like that, where the pages are meticulous and it's scary. If we make our own journal, there's lots of advantages to that. One, it can be really cheap. You can make your journal out of an old magazine, out of brochures, out of the stuff that it comes in through the door, you know, and that you would normally throw away. All of these sorts of things can be used to create the base of a journal. And you can also use leftover bits, and you can use different types of paper, because it's not that one piece of paper is better than another. It depends what you want to do with it. So if you want to be doing some watercolor, then your paper needs to be quite thick. It needs to be at least 200 grams per square meter. It needs to have some substance to it. But if you're just sticking things on to a piece of paper, or if you're using a ballpoint pen or something like that, then you can have paper that's really quite thin and it doesn't matter. So you could use newspaper if you want to for that. And if you have a journal that has lots of different types of paper in it, then immediately, before you even start, it's exciting. There's going to be some interesting things in it. I did, I'm wondering if I've got it close by and I can show you. I did a journal that is just made out of old Christmas cards. I just bound them together into a book, and I'm realizing it's in my car because I did a workshop this week. The boot of my car is just like an art shop at the moment. It's a little bit messy, but getting back to this idea of making your own journal, it becomes much, much more personal when you make it yourself.
But it's not just making your own journal. It's like taking away, it's like the negative space and the positive space and the taking away pages, taking away, yeah, some of it was making your own journal. And so there were different sizes of pages, but some of it was literally cutting into the
Oh yeah,
page and cut. Do you see? I want you to talk about that. The whole idea
absolutely.
of
Again, I
how
think
many pages you doodled through that came from this journal that created its own created its own life.
yes, it did. And this is where it becomes dynamic, because if as soon as we start to cut into a page, straight away you can see the page that comes afterwards, but you only see a bit of it. You only see a glimpse. It's like a window into something else. And if we open a book in the conventional way, we're just turning one page at a time, and then suddenly we have one page that has a hole in it. Straight away, we've got that interest, and that could be a very neatly cut square, or it could be torn. We could have a rip in that page, and then straight away we then have this intrigue. I think this intrigue, and it becomes interesting.
Well,
And
and it's also doodling. It was not only doing the journal, it was doodling in the
in
journal.
the yes, it is, because then you can really start to kind of doodle around the hole, in the hole, do something different on the other page, fold it in a different way, and I think it just adds to the creativity of of the journal, and again makes it very, very personal, and it's fun. It makes it fun.
Well, it's very, like I said, I'm learning things because I don't create that way. I mean, this is like breaking norms for me. And so I like it because of that. Now, other people might like it uh, eh, in different ways. They might like it because I don't know, they might like it because they're learning things.
Yeah,
And I'm learning things too, but I'm breaking patterns. I'm trying to break patterns for the fun of it. I don't really need to break patterns, but because there are many different ways to create. So there's nothing wrong with the way I do it. But it
Absolutely.
breaking patterns, it I don't know. It's good for you. It's like, I think the important thing for me, and maybe for other people who don't think they need this kind of thing, is that you break patterns. You break patterns that you've had for years, that you've been doing
Mm,
for, in my case, for 40, 50 years, the same pattern of creating. And so you want to try something new. And so what you do is give you a key to an opening to creating something that you may not create normally. This is coming from an artist to artist rather than from a student teacher thing. I'm not, I'm talking about the experience of, I think it's very important that people always experiment. And what I found in your work, in what you do, is the ability to experiment. And the other thing, Kate, we cannot, Dorset, I mean, through YouTube, we met. You know,
yeah,
Otherwise, we would never have met.
absolutely.
And and you would have been creating in your world, and I would have been creating in my world, but it opens up. So it is an alternative school where many people from, I saw you do the live thing the other day, and you were talking to somebody who was in Australia and somebody who was in the US, and so even that option is open. Should I shut up? I
I
let you
thought
talk because
wonderful that it was so the live. I've only done two or three lives. I wasn't sure if anybody would be interested, and it was so lovely, and like is exactly as you've said, is that we can connect with people all over the world that we would never have met, and they that we are now connected, and it's lovely, and it's very very positive, and through this connection we can expand our own creative practice. We can step out of our comfort zones a little bit and we can learn. And I feel that I'm learning all the time. I'm learning something new, and it's wonderful.
that's great. Anyway, I hope I will send you a copy of this.
Thank you.
And I don't, well, I still want to go at least a half an hour to 45 minutes. And um I will send you a copy of this. And then if you wouldn't mind putting it on your Facebook page.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
I ask people that they subscribe to my channel and like my channel so I can get more views. But I really think that if you're interested in breaking rules or breaking with your own mold somehow, Kate is a good teacher for that. She teaches alternative ways that you could approach something, even if you're very importantly set in your ways. I'm not saying that right, but if you're set in your way and of creating, it's good practice for your creativity to be able to try different and new things. For example, for me, the connection with the abstract is really important because I am not an abstract person. I'm learning it. I'm not an art journaler. I'm not a junk journaler. I'm just somebody who gets to a piece of paper and just goes, with whatever. So talk to me about, give me advice, talk to me as if I was your student and listen to me, what you would say.
Well, what I would say straight away is you have the techniques and the skills already. So you've already got those in the way that you are working. So you've said it yourself. You need to now break away from what you're comfortable with to be able to try something else. And I would suggest working in a sketchbook because you can then try out things and then develop them further. And I think it's the developing of an idea that a lot of people get really stuck on. They have an idea, they put that down, they either like it or they don't like it, and then they move on to something else. Whereas if we want to really improve our art practice, we need to push deeper and we need to pull out the things that we really like and the things that we feel that are working. So if you are working in a sketchbook, you can have small little pieces. I'm just wondering whether I've got something that I've got it here. I probably haven't. I have got so many sketchbooks. Oh, here we go. So if we look at this, so this was a mixture of collage and doodles where I'm playing around with an idea, and I did 6 different ideas. I've kept the same colors and the same textures, but I've changed the patterns and the doodles. And then on this one, I've developed them a little bit further. And it's when we can really start to work on an idea and then develop that idea and then develop it again and then put it onto the canvas, then our work is going to be much more sophisticated and there's more meaning and purpose behind what we've done. It's not just, oh, this is my first idea. This is what I'm putting out. And that would be my teaching when I'm teaching college students. So they are much more advanced and they have technical ability, but they are stuck. And it's hard. It's really hard.
I I I don't feel in my case I'm not stuck. Gosh, I'm having you pay art therapists to me. I'm not stuck. I'm not stuck, but I like learning new ways of approaching things.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's difficult to learn new ways of approaching things, but that's what makes it challenging.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And that's what keeps your work exciting.
Yes.
Like, it isn't just this is the way I've been doing it, and then I will keep doing it that way. It's like, what can I learn from this person? What and maybe it won't work. You do
Oh,
something and you go,
absolutely. Absolutely.
you try and say, hey, this is not something I want to do. I've said that. I don't want to waste my time doing this, or I'm not interested. But then I think if you open yourself to things, you can also know what you like, what you don't like, and I think experimentation keeps you fresh.
It absolutely does. And I have a phrase that I use a lot when working through something, and that's that we will frequently go through a messy stage where things just look a mess and it looks awful. And it's very, very easy to give up at that point because nothing seems to be going right. And I say to my students, move through the messy stage and acknowledge, oh yeah, I'm in the messy stage. I need to work through it. And that is not easy. But if we set a challenge to ourselves, then this is what we need to do. We need to work through that bit.
What about this is going to be an off the wall question, but what about political kind of art, like zines and mail art or things like that? Have you ever played with that? Uh,
Yeah, I've done. So I used to teach graphic design, and graphics is very much about communication. And so when we are communicating some kind of idea, that could be a political idea, a religious idea, it could be something that's happening within society to sort of push that idea. I've in the past I've done a lot of that. A lot of my students have gone on to do that kind of art. It's not something that I do now so much, although my philosophy is very much playful art. So there's a frivolity to my paintings, but there is an underlying message. So yes, we can create our own message through our art, and that could be very very subtle, or it could be absolutely there in your face, depending on what you want what you want to communicate. All art is some kind of communication. We are embarking on a journey of connecting with somebody else who is looking at your work. And so yes, you can have all sorts of messages within your art. I say I did much more when I was younger, but now it's much more playful.
I just wonder what you thought of that. Because
Well, I
sometimes
think
I feel like, oh, this doesn't say anything, and it doesn't really speak to anyone, and I should really be communicating my political ideas or my political thoughts or somehow reaching out to people, no matter how scary. You know,
I think that there is always space for that, and and if that is what you want to do, if that's what someone wants to do, then that is fine. But I don't think it should be underestimated just how much pleasure people get from looking at a beautiful piece of art, and the beauty in itself. It could be the colors or the patterns, it could be the subject matter. That I feel is just as important, and it makes people feel happy. That's a good thing. Sometimes we do want to challenge and to question, and that's good as well. But I kind of go back to the idea of decorative art. Decorative art and surface design has is very low in the hierarchy of art and design, and I think that's a shame. And we can appreciate beautiful patterns, we can appreciate beautiful fabrics, beautiful wallpaper, a lovely cushion. We, I think, underestimate the power of beauty in art, and I think that's a bit of a shame. So I'm not sure whether that answers your question.
no, I'm just, while I have you here and I'm talking, I just say what I'm saying, what I think, what I think about when I'm creating or what I think
Yes.
about when I'm not creating, and just my thoughts, my intellectual thoughts about creativity. And I think I have to agree with what you're saying too, that something beautiful can bring pleasure
Mm. Yeah, absolutely.
and
And I do
happiness.
happiness. Yes. And I've just realised I've got paint all over me here. I haven't even washed my hands. Oh no, I haven't washed my hands. It does. We can bring joy, and I do. Some of my doodles turn into little characters, and when I'm working with my young people and children in the work groups that I do, I get them to create characters. I get them to doodle little stick characters, and then these develop into more figurative drawings.
Those are the
And
monsters.
oh, monsters and aliens and robots and they and creatures, and they're just wonderful because they start to build their own personalities within this, and then they can write stories and all of this kind of stuff. That is just joyful. It's very funny, and I love it. I love seeing how really small children can start to develop their own creative journey through imaginative storytelling, through doodles. It's wonderful.
Well, let's end with this. The other thing that you do that I've noticed is watercolor, that
Yeah,
you will take watercolor and just put it down to
yeah.
stop the white page from taking over. But then you will create with watercolor and do something. I'm always surprised because I don't use watercolor. And so it's like, oh, what's she gonna do with this mess? You know, she just laid down some watercolor and off she went. So talk about that.
I love using watercolor because I like the way that the paint disperses and how it moves across the page. And my dad is a watercolor artist. He's in his 80s and he's always painted in watercolor. And he does landscapes and very traditional watercolor cityscapes and landscapes and things like that. But he taught me the technique, and then I just ran with it. And he's always kind of like, whoa, okay, what are you doing with that? But watercolor moves across the page in a different way to any other paint. It has a translucency that is that can be very vibrant, or it can be very pale and very wishy-washy. And so you can create moods, getting back to sort of abstract and feelings and moods and things like that. I've just got one here that I was working with. Here we go. This is one that I've just started.
A landscape.
It's a landscape, and I will be putting in some more details on it now. It's completely dry, and so that will be a landscape. But this one, oh, there we go. I've got it over here. That's watercolor as well, and that's watercolor with ballpoint pen and gold ink, and you can just use it in lots and lots of different ways. And I think people are restricted a little bit, and they think, oh, you have to do it in a certain way. And for me, this is where the playfulness comes into it, is that you allow yourself to play and just work with the colors and have some fun.
And then I know, since you showed that, I also noticed that you do a lot of mark making. So when
Yes,
you get done with your, somehow to pull it all together, you
yeah,
will do a lot of mark making to
yes,
bring things
bring it
around
together.
and
Yes,
pull it together.
yes, very much so. But other times, I'm just going to show you this little one here. Um, I can just so this is a little sketch book.
Accordion book, yeah.
Yeah, and again, I've just started to put together some thoughts, um, and that will be a landscape, and I will write some poetry
You know what you
over.
just said is very important. You called the line a thought.
Yes,
And I don't think people think when they're drawing or painting that it's a thought. And I think that's a very important notion because it is a thought.
Yeah.
And I think maybe if they thought about it like that, that you're putting down a thought in some way and you can develop a thought more so, that would be great. That it's not an unthinking, sometimes
Oh,
it's meditative, but it is a thought. And that's what your accordion is. That line is a thought of something.
yeah, definitely. And well, and like you say, sometimes it is nice to just not think too much and just do, but other times to be really mindful about that line and where you're going with your thoughts. It's
But
good
the
to have
thing,
that.
what I'm trying to say is that even if you don't control it, I think if you think of it as a thought, after even the uncontrolled, it doesn't have to be a thought, controlled thought. That even the uncontrolled line that you wash with the
Yep.
watercolor is a thought of a different kind. It's an alien thought, like your children
It
monsters. It's an
is,
alien
yes,
thought.
absolutely. It is, yeah.
All right, now we're talking aliens, and I hope you will talk to me again
Oh, it'd be
sometime.
lovely. And a thank you. Be
So,
really lovely.
thank you. Nobody comes to my channel, but I hope that I can put this on your Facebook page and I'll send a
No,
link.
absolutely. Yeah, that would be
And
great.
then I will also send you the original thing if you want it or whatever.
Okay.
But thank
No,
you very
that'd be
much,
great.
Kate. I was talking to Cate Field. She is an artist and she's a teacher and a dancer and has her own YouTube channel where she does the alternative art school. Thank
Thank you.
you, Kate.
Oh, thank you so much. It's been an absolute joy. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, here's the fun part. First, I have to find my mouse, which I can do, and then I have to stop recording. Bye, Kate.